Hi. Whoa, hi. I'm not here because unfortunately I'm sitting in my kitchen. Not unfortunately, I'm sitting in my kitchen. I like my kitchen. That's where the cooking happens generally in my house. Um, and over my shoulder is what I like to call the refrigerator. And I generally use that for keeping foodstuffs cold. I like to think outside of the box a little bit. And the box being the refrigerator. And so I don't keep all my food in the box. I like to think outside of it, and I put food other places too. Cupboards, drawers, um, my mouth sometimes, like if I want to eat. Uh, so anyway, I'm. Whoa, my face went weird. So anyway, if you could open up your books, because I'm home with Sicko Kid. If you have the other version of the book, I forget which hour has this one, then you kind of just got to listen. Um, I wish I could be there to see your excited reactions to the first three chapters of Scarlet Letter, because I'm sure that it kept you up last night, because it was the 100% adrenaline rush that is Puritan society. So, chapter one is an interesting one because it's not about anything, right? But it's going to set up an idea that shows up a lot in this book. So, first of all, it talks about kind of the setup of the town, and even though this was set up to be a utopia of human virtue, so remember what the Puritans originally and the original settlers wanted to establish Shining City on the hill and all that stuff. Even though they wanted a utopia, the first two things they set aside were cemetery and a prison, right? Which kind of indicates that even though they're going for utopian society, they understand that that doesn't always work out. Now, more important, go to the second page, so this would be 46. We start off with an image of a rose bush outside the prison, right? On page 46, early on born the black flower of civilization, but on one side of the portal, and rooted almost at the threshold, was a wild rose bush, covered in this month of June with its delicate gems, which might be imagined to offer their fragrance and fragile beauty to the prisoner as he went in, and to the condemned criminal as he came forth to his doom, in token that the deep heart of nature could pity and be kind to him. All right, so we start with a symbol. This book is called a symboltastic. There are symbols, 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 symbols. And one of the points about this is he starts off his book with a symbol, and then he says it can be interpreted this way. It could mean this. It could mean this. It could, whoa, it could mean that. So it could be something to help the prisoner as they go in. It could be a sign of redemption as they come out. Or this rose bush, by strange chance, had been kept alive in history. But whether it's merely survived out of the stern old wilderness, and if you remember how Puritans feel about wilderness, that's Satantown, USA, right? The town is that's where the center of Christianity is, and therefore everything which is not town is, by extension, devil town. So, or whether there's fair authority in believing it sprung up under the footsteps of the sainted Anne Hutchinson as she entered the prison door, we shall not take upon us to determine. So it either is a remnant of pre-Christian era, or it's Anne Hutchinson, who was a contrary religious leader, right? She didn't like Puritans, and she tried to lead, not an uprising, but definitely start a new religion, and then she was banished. So there's going to be some connections between Anne Hutchinson and Hester Prynne throughout this book. Or, so those are the couple options. Either it showed up, sprang up out of the wilderness pre-Christian, or in footsteps, Anne Hutchinson's footsteps, or it helps the prisoner going in or coming out. It could mean any of those things, right? And the fact that we don't know, that's the point, right? That sometimes symbols, and because this book is so focused on symbols, notably the letter A, which serves as their punishment, symbols aren't finite, right? Symbols aren't concrete. Symbols can mean various things, and that's one of the problems in this book. They may serve, let us hope, to symbolize that some sweet moral blossom that may be found along this track to relieve the darkening close of a tale of human frailty and sorrow. Or it could be a sweet moral blossom. This is a pretty grim book, but maybe there's there's a moral lesson we can take from it. Okay, in chapter 2, as we've talked about, Hawthorne as a writer and as a human does not like Puritans. But his critiques of Puritans generally are more subtle, right? And so this chapter, we get a lot of descriptions. And where the book starts is Hester Prynne is coming out of prison. She served some time, and her punishment is to stand up on the scaffold, up kind of shoulder level of everybody, and just stand there and let the town observe her and watch her. Okay, so go to page 48. Now it talks about how it's really, really old dudes who are setting this punishment, and maybe the people who would be most unlikely to be able to understand passionate feelings of a young woman would be elderly dude. Now, the women in the crowd are the ones who first start to judge this. It said on 48 that the women, of whom there were several in the crowd, appeared to take peculiar interest in whatever penal infliction it might be expected to ensue. They wedged their not unsubstantial persons. So it talks about each generation that we get away further from the women in England, the women become more slight, they become more beautiful, and they become prettier, right? Hester Prynne is beautiful. Go to page 49. If you read through this and look at the characters, specifically the women who are criticizing this punishment, first one on page 49, Goodwife, said a hard-featured dame of 50, so this is an older woman who's not particularly attractive. She said, if we got to judge her, the 5 women here, it would be a lot worse. People say, said another, going on, added a third autumnal maiden, at the very least, they should have put a brand of a hot iron on Hester Prynne's forehead. So we got a hard-featured dame of 50 saying if we were in charge of the punishment, it would be worse. We have an autumnal matron, so autumnal as in autumn, so she's an older woman. She says, yeah, they should have branded that on her forehead instead of making her wear it. And then we get a young wife holding the hand by the child by the hand. Let her cover her mark as she will, but the pang of it will always be in her heart. Going on. What do we talk of marks and brands, whether on the bodice of her gown or the flesh of her forehead? Cried another female, the ugliest as well as the most pitiless of these self-constituted judges. The woman has brought shame upon us all and ought to die. Okay, so we're getting something about jealousy here, right? Hester's beautiful, these women are not, and the more ugly they get, the worse punishment they want for her. Now, this doesn't speak overly high of Puritan society, because this sets it up as kind of a judgmental, almost foolish place, right? So just kind of keep, anytime something weird comes up, which seems to portray Puritans in a negative light, just to kind of remember what Hawthorne's doing with it. Going on a little bit, now on page 51, now in comparison with all those women who are not very pretty, Hester Prynne, a young woman, was tall, with a figure of perfect elegance on a large scale. She had dark and abundant hair, so glossy that it threw off the sunshine with a gleam, and a face which, besides being beautiful from regularity of feature and richness of complexion, had the impressiveness of belonging to a marked brow and deep black eyes. She was ladylike, too. Okay, so she is very, very beautiful. And she's just standing up there, right? And she's standing it there and kind of giving the crowd not necessarily a smile, but the way she's standing there, she does feel some shame, but she's also, on some level, okay with it. At the bottom of 51, she hath good skill to needle, that's certain, remarked one of the female spectators, but did ever a woman before this brazen hussy contrive with such a way of showing it? Why, gossips, what is it but to laugh in the faces of our godly magistrates and make a pride out of what they, worthy gentlemen, meant for punishment? It were well, muttered the most iron-visaged, the most iron-faced of the women, if we... So what she, the most iron-visaged, the ugliest one, says, I'm going to take a cloth that I hack my with rheumatic, you're coughing up phlegm and coughing up stuff, my snot rag, and we'll put that on her face and let her wear that around. Going on, go forward to, so as she's standing up there, her mind is kind of just replaying a lot of the instances in her life, right? She's going back over when she was back in England and then her trip over here. And as she's standing there, as we move into chapter 3, on page 58, and when he, so this old dude with a Native American is standing in the back. When he, old dude, found the eyes of Hester Prynne fastened on his own, and he saw that she appeared to recognize him, he slowly and calmly raised his finger and made a gesture with it in the air and laid it on his lips. So he recognizes her, she recognizes him, and he just goes, right? Now as he's talking, this guy turns to the next one and asks who it is, because he knows her, right? But he's pretending like he doesn't. And the guy next to him said, Truly, friend, methinks it must gladden your heart, after your troubles and sojourn in the wilderness, said the townsman, to find yourself at length in a land where iniquity is searched out, punished in sight of rulers and people, as here in our godly New England. So, iniquity is searched out and punished in the sight of rulers and people, which sounds very much like the Crucible. And remember how that worked out? So, then, going on 60, this guy says, a wise sentence. She will thus be a living sermon against sin until the ignominious letter be engraved upon her tombstone. Okay, now, The point of this is, as she walks around, not only does she feel the shame of people judging her, but she's supposed to be a living sermon. When people see that at A, they think of the sin that she did and think of the punishment and therefore don't want to do it. Right? That's how it begins. But this is going to change, right? As this is going on, then, go to page 62, the governor steps up and then he asks the minister, Reverend Dimsdale, to stand up. And he says, Hester Prynne, I've striven with my young brother here. They're trying to get him to give up the name. And then Dimsdale, going on, he says on 64, if thou feelest it be for thy soul's peace, and that thy earthly punishment will thereby be made more effectual to salvation, I charge thee to speak out the name of thy fellow sinner and fellow sufferer. Take heed how thou deniest to him who perchance hath not the courage to grasp it for himself the bitter but wholesome cup that is now presented to thy lips. Okay, minister standing giving the speech about why he should give up the name, and Hester won't do it. I think Hester is one of the toughest characters in American literature, and a very kind of proto-feminist character. Hester is really, really tough, right? But she's not tough in an artificial way. Like, she's not tough like she's going to rise up and overthrow Puritan society. Her toughness is on the inside. Right, but she is one of the tougher characters, and whoever the father is, she's protecting him. Right? She says, "And my child must seek a heavenly father, for he shall never know an earthly one." She will not speak, murmured Dimsdale, who, leaning over the balcony with his hand upon his heart, had waited the result of his appeal. He now drew back with long respiration. Wonder, strength, and generosity of the woman's heart, she will not speak. So Hester is willing to take one for the team on this, right? So she's not going to give up the name, and she's going to take the punishment, and therefore whoever husband, or not husband, but whoever guy involved in this affair is getting off the hook so far. And that is where we're at. Okay, so now the next chapter is going to start in the prison, and we're going to find out who that dude is. Okay, now again, this book is tough, and a couple suggestions. One, you gotta read it. Okay? I don't want complexity of the book to prevent you from being able to do well in quizzes. So if you're doing the reading and you're having trouble with the quizzes, then just take some notes and turn them in, because I want you to be able to get your points. But you need to read the book. Okay? One, just to be able to say you read it, and two, to be able to write about it well. And you know, I know that last try not everybody read it, and I can tell that in their writing. Because it's not like you can just spark notes and get a couple quiz questions and then you're fine. You need to know what the book's about to be able to do the writing assignment. Okay, so please stick with it. But do feel free to use spark notes. If you read a summary of a chapter and then read the chapter, that can be a good way to make sure you know what's going on. The plot does pick up, but there's a lot to. This is a tough book. Okay, so I'm going to just say one more thing. Go slowly. Right? This is the kind of book that you can't just zip through. Okay, and the other thing I would say, a couple other things. One, if you are reading this book in a horizontal position, there's a fairly decent chance, especially a horizontal position in a snuggly widow blanket, the odds of you falling asleep are fairly high. So, read it standing straight up. Read it vertically. That way, if you fall asleep, you will fall over and wake up. And if that doesn't work, then I want you to read it standing on one foot. Okay, and if that doesn't work, I want you to take off your coat and just go sit out in the snow and read it. Okay? Again, you can do this, but you're going to have to go slow. And just be kind of checking in with yourself. Because I think all of us have had the experience where you're reading and all of a sudden you look up and you've turned 4 or 5 pages and you moved your eyes over 4 or 5 pages of text and you didn't have any idea what it was about. Right? And that's a big waste of time because then you got to go back and do it. The faster you can realize that you're not understanding and not paying attention to the reading and then go back to where you were, the more efficient your reading time is going to be. Okay? So, I should be back Friday. We'll go over some more stuff in Scarlet Letter. And again, this is probably the hardest book you read this term, but the only way to get good at reading things which are hard is to read things which are hard. So, goodbye. I will see you tomorrow. I'm still here. Okay, now I'm gonna.